There are moments in life when something inside you whispers that there is more. More to reality, more to your mind, more to you. Most people ignore that whisper, but the few who listen discover a doorway hidden in the very center of their brain, a doorway that ancient civilizations revered as the seat of the soul, the gateway to the divine, the inner eye that sees beyond the physical world. Today we call it the pineal gland. But what if the modern world has taught you only a fraction, perhaps even a distortion, of what this mysterious organ truly is? What if your pineal gland is not just a biological structure, but a spiritual instrument, capable of rewriting your perception, accelerating your intuition, unlocking forgotten inner senses, and transforming your life in ways you've never imagined? And what if the real reason this knowledge is rare is because the most powerful technique of activation, the technique almost no one talks about, was intentionally hidden beneath symbolism, myth, and spiritual secrecy for centuries? Tonight, we're diving deep into a truth the ancient Egyptians, yogic sages, desert mystics, and alchemical philosophers understood intimately. Your pineal gland is not dormant, it is waiting. In this video, we're going to explore why ancient cultures saw the pineal gland as a sacred portal, how this knowledge became fragmented, buried, or dismissed the forgotten metaphysical functions of the inner eye, the real mechanism behind pineal activation, beyond the cliches, and finally, the powerful technique that few genuinely understand, but once learned, can shift your consciousness forever. This is not a list of supplements or surface-level tips. This is not another generic meditation guide. This is the deeper layer, the one the mystery schools reserved for serious initiates. Because activating your pineal gland is not merely about awakening something inside you. It's about awakening the world around you, revealing a reality shaped as much by consciousness as by matter. So take a slow breath, settle into your body, and prepare to enter a doorway that has always been yours, but that almost no one has ever shown you how to open. To understand why activating the pineal gland has always been portrayed as a sacred, transformative practice, and why the technique was often hidden, you must journey back through layers of forgotten history, esoteric traditions, and civilizations whose knowledge echoed far beyond their time. Long before modern science gave the pineal gland a clinical definition, the ancients saw it as something far more profound. They believed it was not simply an organ, but a gateway, a portal between the physical and the invisible, the mortal and the divine. In ancient Egypt, the pineal gland was symbolized by the eye of Ra and the eye of Horus, both esoteric representations of spiritual sight. The priests of the mystery schools taught that this inner eye was a receiver of higher intelligence, an organ capable of perceiving the truth behind the veil of matter. They trained initiates to awaken it through breathwork, darkness immersion, visualization, and sacred sound. Travel east into India, and you'll find the Ajna chakra, the famous third eye, described in the Upanishads as the seat of intuition, insight, and transcendental knowledge. Yogis believed that activating this center allowed one to pierce the illusions of the physical world and perceive the deeper layers of existence. The pineal gland, though not named directly in the early texts, aligns perfectly with the descriptions, a tiny jewel of consciousness hidden between the hemispheres, vibrating with spiritual potential. The Greeks too hinted at this mystery. Plato spoke of the soul's steering organ, and many philosophers of the classical era described a luminous point within the mind that served as the bridge between thought and divine inspiration. Centuries later, Descartes would call the pineal gland the seat of the soul, believing it to be the interface between the material brain and the non-material essence of awareness. But even more intriguing are the teachings found in Hermetic, Gnostic, and early Christian mystical traditions. They referenced an inner lamp, a single eye, or a tiny spark of divinity buried within the human temple. Those who learned to activate it gained clarity, prophecy, and profound states of consciousness. Yet despite these ancient references, this knowledge faded. or was silenced over time. Why? Because true pineal activation implies inner freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from manipulation, freedom from the illusions that keep people disconnected from their inner power. Historically, institutions that sought control, political or religious, had no interest in populations capable of self-awareness and inner awakening. And so, the pineal gland became relegated to obscurity. Labeled as a mere biological leftover, dismissed, forgotten. But whispers remained, hidden in temples, encoded in symbols, carried in initiatory traditions passed from teacher to student. Today, as consciousness rises globally, ancient knowledge resurfaces. People sense that the pineal gland is more than just a mysterious organ. They feel instinctively that it is a forgotten portal, one that leads inward, upward, and beyond. And in the next section, we'll dive into the core explanation of what the pineal gland truly is, and the mechanics of how it can be activated in ways few people have ever been taught. To activate the pineal gland, we must first understand what it actually is, beyond the surface-level biology, beyond the scientific terminology, beyond the clichés repeated in spiritual circles. The pineal gland is not merely a physical organ, it is a threshold, a hinge between two modes of perception. A dormant interface designed to translate the unseen into the seen. But here is where the mystery deepens. The pineal gland does not awaken through force, it awakens through alignment. Its activation is a natural consequence of a shift in consciousness, not the result of a single exercise or ritual. Yet there is a technique, a simple one, hidden in plain sight, overlooked by almost everyone because it seems too subtle to matter. And that subtlety is exactly its power. Before revealing that technique, let's break down the fundamental mechanics that make it work. 1. The pineal gland as a sensory portal. Imagine a sense organ that does not detect objects, sound, or taste, but detects frequency. Imagine an organ capable of picking up the subtle changes in energy around you, the symbolic language of dreams, the intuitive pull of your life path. The pineal gland operates like a quantum receiver, tuning into fields of information that your rational mind cannot access directly. This is why ancient cultures called it the eye of Ra, the seed of the soul, the inner star, the gateway of the gods. They understood that awakening it meant awakening a dimension of perception that bypasses the limitations of the physical senses. 2. The real reason it becomes dormant. Despite being biologically active, most people experience the pineal gland in a dormant or fragmented state. Not because it is damaged, but because their attention is scattered, their emotions are chaotic, and their inner energy is trapped in unprocessed tension. In ancient symbolism, the pineal gland is often shown behind or above a serpent. The serpent represents raw energy, instinct, emotion, primal vitality. When that energy is refined, it ascends. When it is chaotic, it disperses. The dormant state isn't a flaw, it's a default mode. Awakening requires a shift to a different state of being. 3. The forgotten bridge between breath and light. Here lies the mystery that most traditions safeguarded carefully. The pineal gland responds directly to breath and to inner light. Not physical light, you don't need lamps or screens. Inner light, the subtle luminous sensation that appears when awareness becomes still and concentrated. When breath becomes smooth, silent, and continuous, the mind quiets. When the mind quiets, a soft, radiant sensation begins to appear in the center of the head. This sensation is not imagined. It is the pineal gland responding. This bridge, breath awakening inner light, was the foundation of countless ancient initiatory practices, from the Egyptian priesthood to the yogic schools of India to the mystical breathwork of the Taoists. But almost no one teaches how to reach that state. 4. Why most modern techniques don't work. People try to activate the pineal gland through intense focus, forced visualization, extreme breathing, chanting without understanding resonance, or attempting to see with the inner eye. These approaches may create sensation, but not activation. Why? Because the pineal gland is like a delicate instrument. It does not open under pressure, it opens under coherence. Coherence is when breath is calm, emotion is stable, attention is continuous. The mind becomes spacious and inner energy begins to rise naturally. This is why enlightened beings across traditions radiated serenity. Their inner coherence activated the pineal gland effortlessly. 5. The unspoken first stage of activation. Before the pineal gland responds, something else happens first. The body enters a state of electromagnetic harmony. This state is subtle but unmistakable once you learn to recognize it. It feels like a gentle hum under the skin, a warm spherical awareness inside the chest or forehead, a sense of expansion, a feeling that time has slowed. This is not the activation yet. This is the doorway opening. And now, with the doorway open, the ancient technique, the real key to awakening the pineal gland, can do its work. That technique is what we uncover in the next section. If the first part of this journey revealed what the pineal gland represents on an esoteric level, the second part reveals why its activation changes everything, and why virtually no one teaches the true method. To understand this, we must go deeper into the paradoxes surrounding the pineal gland. This small, crystalline structure sits at the geometric center of the brain, a place ancient adepts called the throne of perception. To the mystics of the past, it was not merely a gland. It was the interface between physical awareness and non-physical realities. 1. The pineal gland as a dimensional bridge. Ancient initiates believed the pineal gland functioned like a lens, one capable of tuning consciousness to different layers of reality. Not physical travel, but perceptual travel. When activated, it allowed the seeker to sense patterns, intuit deeper truths, and experience reality beyond the five senses. They taught that the eyes see the world, the mind interprets the world, the pineal gland perceives the unseen structure behind the world. This is why so many ancient cultures placed a glowing eye, a jewel, or a lotus at the center of their spiritual symbolism. It was never about the physical eye, but the inner one. 2. The inner light phenomenon. Deep in meditative traditions across India, Tibet, Egypt, and the Pythagorean schools, initiates described a phenomenon that modern science struggles to explain: the experience of inner light. This inner light wasn't metaphorical. It was perceived visually, like a luminous violet glow, a spark, a flash, or a radiant field behind the eyelids. Mystics claimed this light emanated directly from the pineal gland, which was believed to produce subtle biophotons. To the ancient seeker, this light wasn't random. It was a sign the portal was opening. What does this mean in practical terms? The moment the pineal gland begins to activate, awareness expands. You begin sensing connections where you once saw separation. You notice meaning in events that once seemed random. You feel guided, aligned, and intuitively connected. 3. The protective mechanism of initiation. Here lies one of the great mystical paradoxes. The pineal gland will not fully activate until your consciousness is ready. This was described in ancient texts not as a block, but as a safeguard. Why? Because perception shapes reality. And if your perception expands before your emotional stability does, the experience can overwhelm the mind. Thus, ancient spiritual schools didn't focus solely on pineal activation. They focused on preparing the seeker, calming the mind, refining the emotions, grounding the body, stabilizing awareness. Only then was the inner portal allowed to open naturally. This is why the technique is rarely taught directly. It isn't about secrecy, it's about sequencing. Without inner balance, activation becomes chaotic instead of illuminating. 4. The misconception about decalcification. Modern discussions often obsess over the idea of decalcifying the pineal gland. But the ancients didn't speak of calcification, they spoke of dormancy. In their view, The pineal gland wasn't blocked by physical substances. It was blocked by emotional turbulence, mental clutter, sensory overload, unresolved trauma, chronic fear, lack of inner presence. To them, the pineal gland was like a mirror. When covered in dust, it doesn't reflect light. The dust isn't physical, it's psychological and energetic. When the mind becomes still, the mirror clears. When the heart becomes coherent, the mirror brightens. When the body becomes balanced, the mirror aligns. The activation is a natural result, not a forced technique. 5. The secret the ancients never said directly. Hidden within every mystery tradition is a teaching difficult to express but impossible to ignore. The pineal gland does not awaken because you work on it. It awakens because you awaken. The technique no one teaches isn't a breath pattern or a visualization. It's the inner shift that precedes them, the shift from unconscious living to conscious presence. The pineal gland is not the cause of awakening. It is the instrument of awakening. And when the seeker becomes ready, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, the instrument activates on its own. As we arrive at the end of this journey into the hidden powers of the pineal gland, one truth rises with undeniable clarity. Awakening is not an accident, it is a choice. The pineal gland is not merely a biological structure tucked deep within your brain. It is a portal, a compass, a spiritual organ waiting patiently for the moment you decide to see beyond the limits of ordinary perception. Ancient civilizations understood this. They knew that every human being carried within them a spark, a seed of higher awareness, and that the pineal gland was the key to awakening it. Over time, this knowledge was buried beneath dogma, misinformation, and materialism. But its power never faded. It simply waited. And now you are rediscovering what your ancestors once knew, that consciousness is expandable, perception is malleable, and your inner world shapes your outer reality. The technique you learned in this video is not just another spiritual practice. It is an initiatory act, a conscious decision to reclaim a part of yourself that society encourages you to ignore. When you breathe with intention, when you visualize with precision, when you focus with awareness, you are lighting a fire within the pineal gland, a fire that illuminates your intuition, sharpens your senses, and opens the doorway to deeper dimensions of thought and being. But remember, activation is not a single moment. It is a relationship. Consistency transforms sparks into flames. Devotion transforms curiosity into awakening. And awareness transforms techniques into transformation. So the question you must now confront is simple yet profound. What will you do with this power? Will you return to sleep? Or will you step into the path of awareness that is calling your name? If this video awakened something in you, if it stirred curiosity, recognition, or the sense that your journey is just beginning, share your experience in the comments. Your insight may be the spark that ignites someone else's awakening. And if you want to continue exploring ancient knowledge, hidden truths, and the boundless possibilities of consciousness, stay connected. There is so much more waiting for you. Until then, breathe with awareness, walk with intention, and never forget the portal within you.